I didn't notice the blood at first. On Kepri Station, everything smelled like metal and ozone. Everyone had scars. You stopped seeing them after a while. But when she stumbled into Medbay 3, clutching her side, her uniform torn and scorched, the room seemed to tighten around her.
She froze when she saw me.
Not fear exactly, more like instinct. The kind that comes from learning, very young, that leaning figures often bring pain. I'm not security, I said calmly, raising both hands. I'm a medic. Her eyes flicked to the insignia on my sleeve, a faded blue spiral, the Interstellar Relief Corps. Civilian. Non-combatant. Human. That last part made her shoulders tense even more. I won't hurt you, I added softer. She hesitated, then stepped forward. Each movement was measured, controlled, like she was walking through a minefield only she could see. Her species, Aurelian if my memory was right, were taller than humans, willowy, with translucent skin that caught the light like glass. Beneath it, bioluminescent veins pulsed faintly, shifting colors with emotion. Right now, they flickered erratically between dull green and sharp amber.
Pain. Fear.
Sit, I said, gesturing to the examination table. She obeyed, but when I leaned in to assess the wound, she flinched hard enough to slide backward, nearly falling off the table. I stopped immediately. Okay, I said. We don't have to rush. Her breathing was shallow. Her eyes never left my hands. That was when I realized something was very wrong, not just physically. The wound. The injury itself was bad but survivable. Plasma scoring along her lower ribcage, cauterized but unstable. Shrapnel embedded near the spine. Internal bruising. What worried me was how she reacted when I activated the scanner. The soft hum made her recoil, as if struck. No, she whispered, a sound like breaking crystal. No devices. I powered it down instantly. All right, I said. No devices. I'll do this manually. She watched me with intense focus as I pulled on sterile gloves, deliberately slow, narrating every movement. I'm going to clean the area. It'll sting. If you want me to stop, say stop. Her veins pulsed amber again. I leaned in carefully. She flinched, not from pain, from proximity. That was when it hit me. This wasn't about medicine. This was about history. The Aurelian silence. Most humans knew the Aurelians only from the tribunal broadcasts. Elegant, aloof, mysterious. They were the oldest spacefaring civilization we'd ever encountered, and the quietest. They rarely spoke at galactic councils, rarely requested aid, rarely asked for anything at all. What people didn't talk about was why. I had read the suppressed reports during my training. Centuries ago, before humanity had even discovered fusion drives, the Aurelians had been studied by another empire, cataloged, experimented on. Their biology exploited for weaponized light-based technology. The empire fell. Records were sealed. The trauma remained. I looked at her now and wondered what stories lived under that luminous skin. Trust, measured in inches. Tell me your name, I said gently. She hesitated. Names, she said slowly, are personal. Then give me one you're comfortable with. Her veins shifted to a muted blue. Sale. All right, Sale. I'm Elias. I waited. Nothing. I began cleaning the wound with antiseptic foam, careful not to lean too close. She tensed but didn't pull away. Progress. As I worked, I talked, not about the injury but about trivial things. The station coffee is terrible, I said. Tastes like burnt circuits. Don't try it. A flicker of color, something almost like amusement. My first posting was on a mining moon, I continued. Gravity was so low people kept floating into doors. Her shoulders loosened, just a fraction. When I finally had to lean in closer to remove the shrapnel, I paused. Sale, I said, I need to get this out. It's going to require me being close. I want you to know you're in control here. She studied my face with unsettling intensity, as if scanning for lies without technology.
Slowly, she nodded.
I leaned in. She flinched, but didn't retreat. The question. Halfway through the procedure, she spoke. Why do you help us? The question caught me off guard. Because you're hurt, I said. That is not an answer, she replied. Others help because of treaties, or optics, or fear. I extracted the final fragment and sealed the wound. I help, I said carefully, because someone once helped me when they didn't have to. Her veins glowed softly. Who? She asked. I finished bandaging and leaned back. My sister, I said. She died during first contact riots on Mars. A non-human medic stayed with her, held her hand,
Didn't run.
Sale was silent for a long time. Then she said, almost inaudibly, when I was young, humans were used as examples. I stilled. Examples of what? I asked. She met my eyes. That some species cannot be trusted with power. The middle. What she didn't say, Sale remained in medbay for 3 cycles. Officially, she was a minor diplomatic courier injured during a pirate raid. Unofficially, she was terrified of being alone. She slept only when the lights were low and I was nearby. She startled at footsteps. She refused automated diagnostics. So I adapted. I treated her the way you treat someone recovering from more than broken tissue. I asked permission before everything. I explained every sound, every tool, every step. And slowly, inch by inch, she stopped flinching. On the 2nd cycle, she asked me to sit. Just sit. On the 3rd, she told me why she'd been attacked. She carried data, not weapons, not secrets of war. Testimony, records of what had been done to her people, and to others, by long-dead empires whose ideologies were quietly resurfacing. Some humans, she said, want the old technologies back. I felt cold. They don't care about the cost, she added. Only the power. Then why trust me? I asked. She considered. Because you did not lean in until I was ready. The breach, the attack came, without warning. Station alarms howled. Emergency bulkheads slammed shut. I was mid-shift when armed personnel stormed medbay. Not station security.
Corporate.
Sale froze. I stepped in front of her without thinking. She's under medical protection, I said. The lead officer sneered. She's under corporate requisition. I didn't draw a weapon. I didn't shout. I just stood there. Behind me, Sale's veins flared brilliant white. Aurelian for danger. Elias, she whispered. Move. No, I said quietly. The officer raised his rifle. And Sale did something I'd never seen before. She leaned forward. Not away.
Toward me.
Her hand closed around my wrist. The lights exploded. What power really is the Aurelians were never weak. They were restrained. Sale's species could manipulate photonic fields, not as weapons, but as shields, interfaces, memory anchors. They chose not to weaponize themselves after centuries of suffering. But cornered? She projected. Not violence. Truth. The room filled with images, memories torn straight from her mind and cast into space.
Labs.
Chains of light. Screaming silence. The corporate team dropped their weapons, clutching their heads. The projection wasn't painful. It was undeniable. Station command arrived minutes later. So did the tribunal. The ending. Healing is not passive, Sale testified. Not alone. I stood beside her, not as a shield, but as support. Her data reshaped policy, shut down Black Ops programs, exposed factions hiding behind progress. The Aurelians spoke at council for the first time in decades. And when it was over, Sale returned to Medbay one last time. Her wounds were healed, the deeper ones still healing. "I will leave this station," she said. "My people need voices." "You already are one," I said. She smiled, a subtle shift of light and warmth. Before she left, she leaned in, didn't flinch. "Elias," she said, "you treated more than my wounds." I watched her go, knowing something fundamental had changed, not just for her, but for us. Because sometimes the future doesn't begin with a weapon. Sometimes it begins when someone leans in and waits. Kepri Station returned to routine faster than it should have. That was always how it went. Alarms faded, scorch marks were scrubbed away, and people pretended the universe hadn't almost tipped sideways. Within days, merchants argued over docking fees again, and the corridors buzzed with bored voices and recycled air. But Medbay 3 felt different. Quieter. Sale stood near the viewport, her silhouette framed by the slow spin of stars. The bioluminescence beneath her skin had settled into a steady, calm blue, no longer flickering, no longer defensive. "You're leaving today," I said. She inclined her head slightly. "The council vessel arrives within the cycle." I didn't ask if she was afraid. She turned toward me instead. "Do you know what the hardest part of healing is, Elias?" I shook my head. "Accepting that pain is no longer necessary," she said. "When you survive by flinching, stillness feels like danger." Her words settled heavy in my chest. "You don't have to flinch anymore," I said. She studied me, eyes luminous. "Neither do you." I frowned. "I'm not the one who—" "You stand in front of weapons," she interrupted gently. "You lean into suffering that is not yours. That is also a kind of wound." I had no answer for that. The last examination. She asked for one final checkup. No scanners. No machines. Just hands, space, consent. I examined the healed tissue carefully. Smooth regeneration. No residual damage. "You're clear," I said. "Physically." She smiled, truly smiled this time. Warm light spread across her skin, like dawn. Then she surprised me. She stepped closer. Close enough that I could feel the faint heat her species radiated. "I remember," she said softly, "the first time you leaned toward me." I swallowed. "I remember stopping." "Yes," she replied. "That is why I trusted you." She placed her hand briefly over my heart, a gesture I recognized from Aurelian archives. Gratitude. Acknowledgement. Bond. Then she stepped back. No flinch. No fear. Departure. The docking bay was crowded with officials, diplomats, and security, far more than her arrival had warranted. Cameras hovered. History was being recorded. But Sale didn't look at any of them. She looked at me. "When I speak," she said, "there will be consequences. Some will not forgive humanity." "That's fair," I said. She tilted her head. "You do not defend your species." "I don't need to," I replied. "Your truth will do that better than I ever could." Her eyes softened. "Elias," she said, "you once asked why I trusted you." I nodded. "It was not because you are human," she continued. "It is because you are careful with power." The ramp lowered. Light from the council ship spilled across the deck. Sale paused at the threshold. "One day," she said, "others will ask how peace began again between our peoples." I raised an eyebrow. "And what will you tell them?" She glanced back at Medbay 3, then at me. That a human leaned in, 10 waited. Then she was gone. Aftermath. The tribunal's rulings echoed across known space. Corporations dismantled. Research ceased. Long-buried crimes dragged into the light. Some humans protested. Others apologized. Most simply listened. Applications to the Interstellar Relief Corps tripled within weeks. Medbay 3 received new staff, new funding, new attention. I declined promotion. I stayed. Because healing doesn't end when the patient leaves. Epilogue. A message of light. 3 months later, a sealed transmission arrived. Aurelian encryption. Personal. It wasn't video. It was light, encoded emotion, memory, and intent woven together. When I activated it, the room filled with a soft glow. Not images of pain. Images of rebuilding. Aurelian children watching human volunteers help restore shattered archives. Mixed species teams working side by side. Council chambers filled with voices that had once been silent. And at the center of it all, Sail. Stronger. Steadier. Unflinching. Her voice resonated gently through the light. Healing is not passive. It is a choice made again and again. You showed us that trust can begin in quiet rooms, with open hands and patience. The message ended. The glow faded. I sat there for a long time afterward, listening to the hum of the station. Somewhere out there, history was shifting. And it hadn't started with a war. It had started with wounds. And someone willing to treat them carefully.